Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Teresa. Today I'm doing a wrap-up video for January and February 2020. I wouldn't normally have a 2-month wrap-up at once, but I wanted to include January and didn't want to do a separate video, so we're smooshing them together to one giant wrap-up. Quite impressive if I do say so myself. And that's what I'm going to be doing today, but first I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who's been so sweet and supportive with me starting this channel. It's so much more than I ever hoped for or expected. So just thank you very much. I'm very grateful for that. But yes, let's start the video. I've got a list of books on my laptop here just so I don't forget anything. But yeah, let's get into it. So January, I actually read 7 books, and I don't read that many books a month very often, so I'm very impressed with myself. I started it off with a reread of Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McKiston. This was my favourite book in 2019 and I was just missing it. I wanted to reread it. I missed my favourite characters. So I reread it. I loved it. It's 5 stars. Without a doubt. It's one of my favourite books of all time, which is just, I just love it a lot. So here's this. Then I read The Disreputable History of Frankie Lando Banks by E. Lockhart. I picked this one up really cheap from a charity shop purely because I liked E. Lockhart's other book, We Were Liars, and I was kind of hoping I would like this one as much, basically. And I didn't quite. It wasn't like We Were Liars, I read it in one sitting and just cried. This was not that. It wasn't supposed to be that though, from just the type of book it is. But it was really interesting. I gave it 4 stars. It talks a lot about like those prestigious boarding schools and how they're very male centric. Sorry, laptop's gone off. They're very male centric and very exclusionary, and it's just basically this girl kind of infiltrating them in some kind of way and kind of almost controlling the boys and making them do stupid pranks. So I don't think that's a very good summary of it, but it was a fun read. It was a quick read. I do like E. Lockhart's writing an awful lot, so that was my second read of the year. Next I read the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children series. I've got these other 2 here, but I'm gonna hold up one. So, this I've only read the first 3 books. I know there are now 5, but I felt that I already own these books, and I felt that the 3rd book ended nicely. I don't really know how the next one continues. I don't really see myself picking up. Even though I did like these books, I gave them all 4 stars. The best bit about them by far was definitely the pictures. Just there's one for example, if you have not read it. They're full of like vintage photographs, and all the characters that are introduced have their own photograph. It's really interesting to read. But yeah, I like them. They're really solid, but they weren't like groundbreaking, change my world, which is true for, I'd have to say, most of the books in this video. It was really fun. It was really interesting. I'd actually already seen the film for this book, so it's a bit weird coming into the book having seen the film first. I don't often do that, and I was definitely like, wait a minute, because there's a pretty major change character-wise, and I was like, what is this? But yes. This trilogy were my 3rd, 4th and 5th books. I also picked up in January One of Us Is Next by Karen M. McManus. This book, I have to say, was a bit of a disappointment. I really liked One of Us Is Lying, which is why I bought this one as soon as it came out, but Honestly, I think it didn't live up to it nearly as much. I don't think it was necessary. I think it really stepped away from being a thriller and being a mystery and focused so much more on personal dramas, and that wasn't really what I was wanting. It also the mystery just wasn't as good. Like it was a really unsatisfying ending, I have to say. Ended up giving it 3 stars based on that. Like it was enjoyable to read, but it just wasn't as good as I was hoping for, basically based on the first book. Um, Finally, for January, I read Beautiful Creatures by Cami Garcia and Margaret Stoll. Just to say, I don't know how to pronounce names, so that's going to be the real drawback on my channels. I can't pronounce anyone's names, so sorry in advance. This book I gave 2 stars. I was not a fan, and I unhauled the entire series. So that's that. It's like an interesting premise, but it's so old YA, and within that, it's so many like problematic things. Like it's so misogynistic, and I've not have I don't know much about the American South, so I don't know if this is like stereotyped or not, and if it's accurate to that. But I feel like you're very much expected to understand the American South and the American Civil War. All I know about the American Civil War came from this book, so I don't think I know very much at all. I was so lost in regards to that because that's such a big part of the book. Um, I feel like maybe I'd have enjoyed this a lot more if I'd read it years ago, but now it wasn't that fun. I was struggling to push myself through it. I considered DNFing, but then I felt like I'd gone into it expecting that I would have to DNF it. So I was like, am I just doing this because I thought I would have to, or is it because I'm genuinely not interested? But yeah, should have just DNF'd it. So I finished it, immediately unhauled it. I actually had to take this out of my pile of books being unhauled for this video. Okay, that is my January wrap up. It's very quick. I think I'd like to talk more, laptop going off. I think I'd like to talk more in depth about the books I read, but I'm trying to be quick since I've got so many this video. But if you are interested in more of my thoughts on any books, I have on my Instagram, which is linked in the description, my 2020 reads highlight, and I've got just a bit of a little mini review about every book I read. So that's always there if you want to know more. I should really get around to just like copying what I've put there onto Goodreads or something, but I've not done it and I can't be bothered doing it, to be honest. I don't really use Goodreads that much. Okay, so I think I'll start on February. I've got a lot of ebooks in February, so I'm going to try and put pictures in, but we'll see. I'm not convinced it's going to happen. Okay, for my first two, I'll just say I got a Kindle Unlimited free trial over Christmas. You get it for a month free. I forgot to cancel it, so I just wanted to read a couple books to make it worth my £8 for January. So first I read a book called Dragon Whisper by Neve Murphy. This was a first book in a high fantasy series. It's not got any sequels or anything yet. I gave it 4 stars. It was pretty good. It's dual perspective from you're kind of like on the two sides of what's brewing to be a war, and each side is an FF couple, or what's going to one day be an FF couple. They're still not together yet. So that was really interesting in terms of that rep and having one couple you're already established, the other one just seeing them meet each other and start having crushes on each other. That was cute. They go on an adventure. It was a pretty solid book. There's a lot about dragons in it if you like dragons, but yes, it was fun. And then the next book I read was a kind of prequel novella to that called Dragon Essence. I gave this one 3 stars. It was like 60 pages long and could have been like just condensed and put into the book. Like, I didn't see why it was released in full without having any mention of that in the book, when a lot of it was quite necessary. Um, like, I don't know, I just didn't think it added very much. Um, or it did add, but it should have been added in the actual book, basically. Um, yeah, that one was alright. Wasn't the best. It was 60 pages. It was very quick to read. This is why I got so many books read in February, is I read 2 novellas. The next book I actually read was Escaping from Houdini by Carrie Maniscalco. This book I gave 3 stars. I read the first 2 books quite a while ago, but I remember I liked them a lot more. They were a lot more crime solving than this one. This one was a lot of just Audrey Rose having some dramas happen and not a lot of attention paid to an awful lot of murders happening in this book. It was just like, someone's dead. It's like, oh no, back to my personal drama. And that just wasn't as fun to read, really. So that's why I gave it a lower star rating. But it's good, it was solid. I do really like Carrie Maniscalco's writing as well, actually, and just like the whole setting for this series is really fun. Next up was another ebook, was the Becoming the Dark Prince novella as part of that series. I actually gave this one 4 stars. I'm usually quite judgmental in novellas, but I really like this one. It's told from Thomas's perspective, which is he's like Audrey Rose's partner in crime, if you've not read the series. Well, partner in crime solving, I should say. And they're together, and that's a spoiler. They don't get together in the first book or anything, so tag your spoilers. But yes, and it's just his point of view, because he was kind of missing from a lot of the 3rd book, and it's just nice seeing like what his thoughts were, how he was doing, and just a little bit, because the last book didn't wrap up very well, and this novella, 60 pages as well, actually, it really just wrapped up what we'd missed, basically, from the end of the last book. So yeah, that's another reason why I gave Escaping from Houdini a lower rating, was just that this one seemed almost necessary to finish it. It just didn't end very well, I thought. And then next I read Capturing the Devil, also by Carrie Maniscalco, the final book in this series. This one I gave 4 stars. I was much happier reading this one. It did have still a lot of relationships and personal things, but it got, especially in like the second half, it was very like solving crimes and much more focused on that than anything else, and that was a really good bit of the book. There was like 100 pages somewhere near the start where absolutely nothing happened, and it was like really weird to read. Like, if I hadn't been in such a reading mood, that would have taken me so long to get through. But I did manage to get through that over just 2 days, so that it didn't affect me too much, but I know it could have, which is part of the reason why I docked a star in this one. But it was a really solid concluding book, and I really liked the way things linked back to the previous books, and you saw previous characters and such. It was just really good. Also in this series, I like the author's notes at the ends with all the like historical references, and seeing how much was actually based on true history, and so much of it is like all of the crimes in these books are inspired by actual things that happened, actual events, and obviously put their own spin on them for the books and for the purpose of Audrey Rose being a fictional character. But that, I just like seeing that, and it was really interesting to see, basically. And after that, I read Five Dark Fates by Kendare Blake. I do not know. this is the last book in the Three Dark Crowns series, and I gave it 4 stars, and I think it probably could have been a 5-star read if I remembered anything that had happened in the first 3 books. I went into this so confused. I didn't know anything that was happening because it just got right into the action, and I was still like, what is this? Who are you? And it was funny because I'd forgotten so much, and sometimes they'd be like, oh yeah, this character died, and I'd be like, they what? Because I'd completely forgotten. So, um, yes, but it was a really good conclusion. It was so like fast paced, constant action. It was really just really enjoyable, really quick to read. Um, I think it had a really satisfying ending in terms that Kendra Blake kept up the stakes that she promised. You know, like she didn't take like the cowardly route. She did what she said she was going to do, and I really admire that. And it made for a really good book, and really good, really satisfying conclusion to a series. Next, we've all, if you've seen my booktube newbie tag, you'll know I was reading Enchanté at the time. I finished that this morning. I'm recording this on the last day of February, by the way. So this is making it into my wrap-up. It's Enchanté by Gita Trellis. I actually gave this 5 stars. I really, really loved this. It's got such an interesting magic system, interesting characters. I thought it really built up to like the climax well. Like I was getting all excited. I wanted to read more. I thought it was such an interesting concept, and it's nothing new. A poor person trying to infiltrate and pretend to be part of the aristocracy. But it was really well done. I like the magic system. I like the characters. I think I've said all of that already, but it's true. I was actually also really impressed with this book. And also, I think in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series, the inclusion of people of colour and queer relationships in a historical setting, because so many people, you know, they'd say, oh, it's historically accurate for everyone to be straight and white, and it's not. And this actually says in the author's note, it explains a bit about people of colour in this time period, because the love interest in this book is half Indian and completely takes after his Indian blood, and there's just a little bit about him and how that affects him, really. And there is also a queer couple within it, and just how they definitely existed but had to live in secret in court. So yes, I really did enjoy this. I might be biased just because there's so much French and it's in a French setting, but I enjoyed it, and that's what matters. So 5 stars to this. Finally, I've not actually finished this yet. I've got, I think, 30 pages left of this. It's Le Coeur à rire et à pleurer by Maryse Condé. I also talked about this in my booktube newbie tag. I think I'd only read 40 pages then, so I can tell you a bit more about it now. It is autobiographical, it's completely true. It's like snapshots of Maryse Condé's childhood growing up in Guadeloupe in like the 40s, the 50s. So at this point, France, when she was born, Guadeloupe was still a colony to France. And then when she was quite young, it became a département d'outre-mer, which is like an overseas territory. But so it's administratively part of France, but not a colony. That was their reward for doing well in the war, basically. So there's a lot in here to do with the idea of being French and racial hierarchies and just race in general, and lots of really interesting themes, but also just childhood and some things like that, and friendship and such, and family. But yeah, I've been really enjoying it. It's really interesting to read, and Also learning about the history of Guadeloupe through this and through my lectures on it has also been really interesting. There's so much I didn't know about the French colonies and former colonies, I suppose. Yes, it's been very interesting. I'm actually writing, I've started planning my essay I'm going to be writing on it. So I'm writing about the perspective of Maurice Condé now as an adult, looking back on her childhood and writing this. And also the thought she gives from her child self and kind of comparing them and looking at them in relation to the colonial experience. So that's really interesting as well, just things that she didn't realise or didn't fully understand when she was younger as being, because of the colour of her skin and things like that. So that is a really interesting topic. I really liked learning about this book. So that is that. I'm going to finish it today because now it's in this video of my February wrap up, so I've got to. Just forcing myself to finish it. So that is my wrap up. I feel like I've spoken an awful lot. I suppose it's a 2-month wrap up, and I've been weirdly productive with reading these 2 months. Like, normally I read about 40 to 45 books a year. I have not gotten over 50 in a while. But right now, I think I'm not that far off of being on track to read 100 books, which I don't think I will be doing, but it's quite impressive. So I don't know what's happened in my brain, but something's kicked in and I've been like, time to read. So can't complain because I have really enjoyed most of what I've read so far this year, and yeah. Hopefully following wrap-ups won't be quite so long. I imagine this is a long video, but also not quite so rushed and rambly. As I said, if you want to know what I'm reading as I'm reading my Instagram, you'll find stuff there, and you can also find more cohesive written out thoughts on my books. So yes, that is, I think, the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully see you again soon.